What is up, everybody? I hope you are having a fantastic evening. It is the night before the draft. 'Twas the night before Christmas. I forget the rest of that. I'm way too tired. I took a nap before I put my kids to bed and then came here. I shouldn't have done that. You ever you're tired and you take a nap and you're more tired? How does that work? Anyways, I figured we could do a little chill stream before the night of the draft. Before the draft, the night before the draft. I think that there's a lot of interesting rumors that are coming out. And as long as the mock draft season is, and as fun as it is, you start to get late mock drafts from people that do one mock draft or very few mock drafts. And these are the people that are in the know. And you start to see that they are mocking a little bit different than what we've been hearing or seeing. And you wonder why that is. Is it truly them guessing or do they have inside information? So we're going to talk a little bit about some of that. I think also we can just slowly go through it together, but I want to go through the first 10 picks, see what we think is going to happen for the most part, and then what is going to be there for the 49ers. We'll talk about all the latest rumors and just hang out and chill night before the draft. Can't wait. Let's hit this intro. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And as I said, it is the night before the draft. I'm excited, man. It's this draft season was really, really hard early on for me to get excited about and get involved. But as it's gone on, I really feel like I have the best sense of this draft that I've had since the 21 draft. The 21 draft, I was so sure that the pick was going to be Trey Lance. And it was. And a lot of people thought a lot of different things. But because of that draft and studying the quarterbacks, I put so much effort into preparing for that draft in general. So for me, I just felt really prepared going into that draft. Last couple of years, I always feel prepared, but there's levels, there's varying degrees. This year, I feel like I have a sense of what's going to happen in this draft, at least the players that are worth looking out for. I don't necessarily know like where they're going to go or all that, but just how good the draft is, where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are. And then hearing John Lynch talk about this draft validated everything that I said or thought, which was, hey, it's a deep draft. We feel like you can get starting level players into round 4. We feel like there's 200 draftable prospects, which is a pretty high number, really, for a professional team to say. I didn't agree with the 21st round prospects. I feel like there's a lot of players that may not be worthy first round picks once you get, middle or so of the draft. But overall, I mean, his thoughts echoed exactly what I've been thinking about this draft. And I think for most of you that have been mocking and watching and listening and just geeking out on it, I think the sense that you got is very similar. But it is nice to have those thoughts and then hear either a draft expert or a GM or what have you talk about that. And I think that's why you're hearing rumblings of a lot of teams wanting to move back in this draft, especially those teams like the Commanders. Who else is it? The Cardinals, teams that have a low volume of picks, 5 picks, 6 picks. Teams are trying to compile as many picks as possible for this draft because there is a lot to pluck from in rounds 2, 3, and 4. And that's not always the case. Sometimes drafts are very top heavy. So it doesn't matter how many picks you have. So you'll trade back and you'll get future picks and what have you. But I feel like the teams that don't have a lot of picks in this draft are definitely willing to move back. We heard rumors today that the Commanders and the Giants are in conversation of the Giants moving up from the second round. That would give the Commanders more picks in this draft, just more shots at the dartboard. And really, what's the difference for the Commanders? I think they picked like 29 or something like that. If they were to move to 34, is that big of a deal? But if you get an extra pick out of it, totally worth it. You go from 5 picks to 6 and you get another shot at it, maybe round 4, round 3, what have you. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that teams are looking to do that. It doesn't surprise me that John Lynch says, hey, a lot of teams are looking to move back basically in that middle of the first round area, but not a lot of teams are willing to move up. We've heard rumblings that Denver wants to move up, but if they want to move up, they probably want to move into the top 10. So they're not necessarily a trade candidate for the 49ers. If another team in the late 20s or early second round wants to move up, they might want to get to 20 or so where Denver is at because they want to get ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But do they want to move all the way up to 11? Probably not. So it does seem more likely that the 49ers are going to be drafting at 11. And then also about 2 weeks ago, when there was a rumor that the 49ers were looking to move up in the draft, and that still might be a possibility. I look at the Carolina Panthers, for example. I think that's a spot where the 49ers could trade up. But when that conversation was happening, I said, you could report this about any team. If you said, hey, this team has made calls about moving up in the draft, or this team has made calls about moving back in the draft. All teams do this. They have to be prepared for every scenario in the draft. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's exactly what John Lynch said. He goes, yeah, we made calls about moving up. We made calls about moving back. All I know is everybody has a plan, but a draft will break out on Thursday. And when that draft breaks out, you got to be prepared for all scenarios. So yes, calls are always made. So felt good about that too. But overall, man, I just think that the 49ers can get some really good players in this draft. Really good players. And I don't know that those players are going to be enough to make them truly competitive this year. In fact, I doubt that. I still think they're going to be a playoff team if they do well in this draft. But this draft is the foundation paired with last year's draft towards 2026 being a success and going forward into trying to reach Super Bowl heights again, 2027, what have you. If this draft isn't a hit, this team is not going to be truly competitive for quite some time. Like, this draft to me is that important. It is. And luckily for the 49ers, they have a lot of picks and there are a lot of draftable prospects who can make a difference. So, regardless of what happens, I'm going to have my opinions on draft night. We'll be live. Make sure that's one thing that we've had a really good time at every single year is draft time on this channel. We're always live for Thursday. We'll be live Friday. My son does have a flag football game, and I do coach his flag football team. So we'll be a little bit late on Friday, but we should be back just in time for the 49ers to make their pick right around that time, maybe a little bit before. So Friday we'll be live, and then Saturday we'll be live as well. And that is a 3-day stretch where I think this channel and you guys really have shown out for the last 4 years. And we've had a heck of a time, and we've had a bunch of different opinions. But one thing I will say is, regardless of what the opinions are on the night of these picks, the truth will eventually come out about all these prospects. And the hope is that the prospects that the 49ers end up taking in this draft pan out. And if they do, the foundation is set for a successful 49ers team for the next few years. And if they don't, it's going to be a lot of trouble. The good news is that we get to watch it all play out. We'll all have our opinions. Eventually, these guys will hit the field, and we'll know over the next couple of seasons. But that's what makes this process so much fun. Also, another note, I do want to say, this is the first year that I've really looked at these prospects. I'm 41 now. This is the first year that I've looked at these prospects and go, oh, gosh, dude, these guys are so young. They all look baby face. They all look younger. I'm like at the age now where it's like, God, these guys legitimately could be my kids age-wise, and that is crazy to think about. This is the first year where I've just felt old looking at these prospects like, man, that guy's going to be a quarterback in the NFL next year, and then he's going to be getting ripped to shreds by every prognosticator around the world talking about sports. Like, man, imagine being that guy's parents. So I don't know. It just an interesting thought that hit me is like, huh, man, mortality is real. I feel old as heck looking at these prospects for sure. All right, let's talk about some of the rumors that have come out with the 49ers. The first one is George Kittle. And Diana Rossini put out her report basically saying that George Kittle is looking to be the highest paid tight end, and that the reason he's not at these voluntary camps is because it's money related. And George Kittle replied to her and was like, your report's wrong, which I always think is funny. I do think that we've seen this before where players will do this. They try to like dunk on somebody, and the truth was that the report was right the whole time, but they are uncomfortable with the report. So they try to sway public opinion. They know as a player, hey, if I come out and I dunk on this person, I am going to get the court of public opinion on my side. I'm going to get all the likes. I'm going to get the retweets, and all the fans are going to love it. I'm not saying that's the case here with George Kittle, that he's lying, but I also don't fully believe that that's not a possibility. So when we hear that Trent Williams showed up, which thank goodness for that. I'm so happy that Trent Williams is there. I'm so worried about that guy retiring. I had this gut feeling that it could happen, and I'm glad that that's not the case. They need Trent Williams this year. They've waited way too long to draft offensive tackle. Maybe they do it this year multiple times over, what have you. They have next year's draft, it sounds like, to get ahead of that as well. But I just thought it was a real possibility that Trent might retire. The fact that he's there is great news, unless he's doing something crazy like just showing up to say goodbye to his teammates. I don't know. But the fact that Trent is there and George Kittle isn't, it's like, yeah, George, it's okay. It's okay to want more money. You've earned that, bud. Like, you have been a premier player in this league for a long time. You've earned the fact or earned the right to ask for more money. Just let it sit, let it bake. You want more money. You want more money and you want more years. Now, is that enough to keep you out of camp? Do you have an injury? Did you just not want to go? Sure, that's fine. But you want a new contract. We all know this, and it's not that big of a deal. You deserve it. So just let it happen, man. Let it happen. But it is funny when players dunk on people because they always win. They always win in the court of public opinion. I also want to throw out there was we're going to go pick by pick and talk about all the rumors that are kind of swirling around each pick. But Peter Schrager today threw out just flippantly like, oh, by the way, if Sanders is there late in the first round, the 49ers just might want to draft him and move on from Brock Purdy. Okay, that's a little out there. Now, one, I don't think Sanders is going to be there late first round. That's number one. Number two, even if he was, I think it's about a 1% chance that the 49ers do this. But at some point, there's a little smoke to the fire when you have Sims talk about it, you have Schrager talk about it. Both of them are certainly connected to the organization. Doesn't mean they have their own opinions that are not the organization's opinion. Okay, I'm not saying what they're saying is factual. It is a little weird though. It is a little weird that we are hearing those things about the 49ers and their quarterback situation from two people that are beyond plugged in, specifically with the 49ers. It's not like it's Adam Schefter, who obviously is an insider and he just threw something out there. But, he's connected around the league, but how connected is he specifically with the 49ers or whoever, Pat McAfee or something like that. It's just these two specifically are very connected in the 49ers organization. So when they say something like that, my ears do perk up a little bit. I'm not, again, I don't think that there's a big possibility of anything like that happening, but it is interesting. And it just, at the very least, when you add that to the way that the 49ers this offseason have talked about this Brock Purdy situation, it's just another reason for pause where it's like, do you really truly believe that this is your guy? Are you that confident in it? And if you are, then quit playing games, man. Quit messing around. Just get this deal done. What are we doing here? And even if it's not, why would you throw that out to the public? It's one thing for me to get up here and give my opinions about Brock, and it frustrates the hell out of a lot of people. I get that. But when the 49ers do it, the organization does this and plays these games, it's a whole different level. You as fans want to hear, regardless, you want to hear feel good things. You want to hear that they have their franchise guy. You want to hear that they're confident in Brock Purdy. You don't want to hear like there's questions about it. And then, oh, by the way, they still went ahead and paid him and did all the things. Like, well, hold on. If you had questions about it, then why are we doing that? Now I have questions. I didn't have questions before, but now I have questions, and you just made the payment go through. Why? Why did you have to put that out in the ether? Just pay him and give us a vote of confidence. That's what we want to hear. So I just think it's very interesting that the 49ers have acted the way that they have, said some of the little things that they've said, and now two people that are very connected to this franchise specifically are just out there saying flippantly, hey, Shador Sanders might be cool, and maybe I wouldn't pay Brock so much. It's interesting. It's interesting to say the least. All right, let's pull up this draft real quick. There we go. Okay, let's pull up this draft. Because I want your input on it based off of some of the rumors that we are hearing. And we're going to make the picks because I want to see what we think will realistically be there at 11. So, obviously, we know who's going to go here. Pick number 1, Cam Ward. We got it. Okay. Pick number 2 is either going to be Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. I think the consensus is that it's going to be Travis Hunter, but it could be Abdul Carter. And if it's not, then the other one is going to go the pick after, we assume. So if that's the case, whether we go Hunter or Abdul Carter at 2, the other one's going to be gone at 3, and then there we go. So I've got a friend in backstage here. Are you ready to come on? Thumbs up. All right. He's not at his normal studio, so I wasn't quite sure, but this will help me out here. What's up, dude? Oh, you're muted. Hold on. There we go.
How we doing? Can you hear me all right?
How you doing?
Hey. Man, I just got back from this hike. My wife was like, "Oh, so we live in northern Minnesota. I live on Lake Superior." Sent Jesse some pictures from this overlook. And my wife's like, "Oh yeah, trails are open. There's no mud. There's no ice. There's no whatever." I'm walking all these places. I got walking down to my knees in mud. I'm like, "Oh man," my wife gave me some horrible advice. So I'm late to the show. Did not have time to get my setup, but I thought I'd hop on, because I know my guy. I'm going to be with my guy tomorrow. I cannot wait. It's draft eve. Oh,
it's going to be fun, man. So I think it's going to be you and Rohan and myself.
mm-hmm.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And this has been a trio. Sometimes Marco joins, sometimes he doesn't, because Marco's got Marco's married and it's his
Yeah.
wife's birthday and all this stuff. It always falls on this weekend. Convenient, Marco, convenient.
Mhm.
So sometimes he's there, sometimes he's not. But you, myself, and Rohan have been doing this for a few years now. And I love having you guys join because I was just telling everybody that for me, this is the most prepared I've felt going into a draft since the 21 draft. And obviously, everybody felt prepared in the 21 draft because it was the quarterback draft. Who are the 49ers going to take? And because of that, you got into the rest of the draft and really learned about it. I always feel somewhat prepared going into these drafts. You're always way more prepared. Even as good as I can prepare, you're more prepared because you start way earlier than me. And that's why I love having you there because we also disagree on a lot of prospects and it's a lot of fun. So we may take a guy where we completely disagree. I think Ricky Pearsall is a good example of this last year, where when we took him, I was so disappointed
You were
that we took him.
yeah, you were apoplectic, I think. You were really
Yeah,
stuff.
I was but by the end of the conversation, I felt better about it because you're like, listen, this is a good prospect. I get it. It's early. I do understand that, but the
Oh yeah.
prospect is good. And so by the end of the night, I felt good about the prospect. Still not great about the pick because of the timeline. And I'm looking at it going, at best, he's probably not going to get a second contract with the 49ers at his age. I don't understand this. What are we going to get? 4 years out of him? And sure enough, year one, not a big production. No surprise there. And I expect that he'll produce for the next 4 years, but does he earn a second contract? Either way, the point is that the difference of opinion is great for the viewer, and it helped talk me off the ledge in the moment because, man, I was disappointed. I also remember a couple years ago, Ty Davis Price. We were both like, "What the hell, man? What is going on? Why did they draft Ty Davis Price?" We couldn't understand it. We were obviously right about that one. I think there was some mixed conversations around Drake Jackson a couple years ago. So it's just fun. It's a good time, and I trust your opinion. I trust Rohan's opinion. And I feel like this year, David, more so than ever since the 21 draft, I am prepared and feel confident talking about a lot of these prospects. So I think tomorrow night through the weekend, really, we're going to crush this draft show and have a lot of good things to talk about. So I'm excited about it.
No, man, you nailed it too, and that's what I love about disagreeing. I mean, that's the thing. What viewers you guys are watching right now, you see on the TL, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of ditto heads out there. I mean, Jesse and I will have we agree a lot on a lot of different prospects, but I mean, you can just look at our text threads like today. I mean, God, I was taking Jesse to task on Todd McShay. I mean, I almost unfriended him. I almost quit. I almost quit the post game show. Quit on draft eve because I anyway. All love to Todd McShay.
Oh, too good, too good. Well, I'm glad that you came here at this time, David, and we'll do this with Rohan tomorrow and do it more in depth. But I think we'll try to. We tried this last year and we got like halfway through in the first hour and just talked too much. But we'll try to go through the whole first round tomorrow and just see how accurate we can be. We'll be live an hour before the actual draft. And we know that once the draft starts, it's really another 20 minutes before it really, really starts. So we'll have about 80 minutes or so to actually go through the full first round, try to come up with a consensus and see how accurate we are. But tonight, I wanted to go 1 through 10 just to see what we think might be available there for the 49ers. So we agree, Cam Ward, number 1, like that's a no-brainer. Now, Travis Hunter, early on, it was Abdul Carter at 2, and now it seems to be Travis Hunter at 2. I think either way, though, whether it's Carter or Hunter, the other one's going to go at 3. So it's not about necessarily getting it right at 2 and 3. It's just we know that they're going to go 2 and 3, right? I mean, do we pretty much agree there?
Yeah, and I think most of the time, like even if we're like, if you score mock drafts, if people like can do that, like anybody really cares. But this idea that you score them is that most guys go like, "Hey, how many out of the 32 spots did you get right?" Right? Like not to the right teams all the time. Like, did you get like X amount of, I mean, if you can get like 25 out of the 32 first round picks. I mean, that's that's pretty good. And so, yeah, like
Yeah.
Hunter and Carter, I keep going back and forth. Daniel, I just texted you before. Like, Daniel Jeremiah came out with one of the more, I felt, unique and honest mocks, maybe about like what he really could think could happen or should happen. I don't know exactly what the blend of it. I think it was really more predictive. But he has Abdul Carter going to the Browns, right? He has the Giants taking Shador Sanders, and he just came out. This is just an hour ago, and he has Hunter falling to the Patriots. So that's not chalk, right? Like that's the least chalky mock I've seen
Yeah.
anywhere in the last week. So yeah, but I think you're right. I don't think the Giants will take Shador. I don't think, and this is the thing, Daniel Jeremiah, super well connected, smart dude, like maybe the most respected guy in the mock land nowadays, right? Um, I don't think his info is right there on Shador. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And Shador is interesting because he could technically go as high as 3, but he could go as late as, I don't know, into the first round if things get crazy. Like,
And that's crazy to me. And I'm not high on the quarterback class, admittedly,
yeah,
but I'm struggling to figure out what people don't have such a problem with Shador Sanders. I, I guess I don't not even the personality. I think the personality is effusive and fun. I want that on my team, but as a player, I'm struggling to figure out this quibble between like why Cam Ward is just such a much better prospect than Shador.
yeah.
I don't see it, and I think Shador Sanders is a better prospect. That's just me.
Yeah, the thing when I look at it, I mean, I could hear a bunch of different rankings. I've heard somebody said, "Hey, I was talking to an executive and they have Jackson Dart number 1." I think ultimately to me this draft class is when you compare it to last year's class, the best quarterback arguably would be the 5th or 6th best quarterback in last year's draft. And so I
Exactly.
think because of that, people are souring on it, but that doesn't mean you're not necessarily getting good players. I don't look at Shador and you don't either. Look at Shador and say, "Oh, this is the next big thing."
Oh no,
But it's
no.
if you're gonna be so okay with Cam at 1, then all of a sudden Shador falling into the 20s really doesn't make a lot of sense. When you watch him play, I look at it and say, man, if he was in a Shanahan system, he would crush. I don't think
Yep.
he's good for every system. I don't know if he goes to the Steelers if that's a great fit, but I think in a Shanahan style system, he would crush that system. And I also think that there is some last name bias that can play in his favor and that can go against him. Obviously, being Deion Sanders' son, I think a lot of people hype him up because of that.
Yep.
But also being Deion Sanders' son, I think people expect to turn on the film and see this uber athletic
Yeah.
player. And when
Exactly.
they don't, they go, "Oh, what the hell is this? This guy sucks." So I think there's a lot of bias because the last name, positive and negative.
Well, and I'll be honest, I don't want to, this is just more of a social. I mean, it's not a political thing either. I honestly think that we are still in this era where people look at whether it's Deion Sanders' son or let's just be real. Like, I think people see when they look at a black quarterback, they think that like everybody is like they're not a pocket passer, and it's just such a stereotype that is ridiculous. And I'm not thinking it's like this insidious thing, but I think that
No.
it is like there's blinders on people when they think like, dude, like it's the same thing with like CMC being like, no, dude, that guy's got juice. Like Shador Sanders is a pocket passer, but he does have pocket evasiveness. He does have pocket mobility. He can make
Yeah.
plays. But he is a guy that is more akin to that, like you said, somebody that could kill in a Niner system. Like somebody like a Brock or a Mac Jones, even really. Like they're very similar style quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
I think Shador Sanders is a better prospect than Mac Jones, in my humble opinion. And Mac Jones went 15 in what was supposed to be an all-time quarterback class. Well, we saw how that's worked out, right? And I will say this: you got me on I've been watching Todd McShay, like kind of hate watching a little bit, but I have to say he makes some really good. He really does make some good points. Todd McShay he does a great job. And one of the points he made about was, let's say the Giants like Jackson Dart,
Mhm.
And Brian Dable says he wants that guy, but just and not even wanting to talk about Dart here.
Yeah.
Well, do you get cute? Do you pass up Abdul Carter? He says no, but Joe Shane's responsibility would be, well, do you really get cute and try to trade way back? Like, well, let's say the Saints and you want Dart. Do you really trade back to 20 and think you can get him there? Like, Michael Penix and the Falcons. You know, people
Yeah.
can get mad at Terry Fontenot all they want, but bottom line is they took a calculation and said, you know what? This is the guy we want. We're not going to mess around. We're not going to get cute. And so I think that's where people have to think about with quarterbacks. And that's why I'm really confused about Shador. I just can't see him falling out of the first for teams that are looking for a quarterback. I don't, I feel like if you like a guy, why get cute, try to get him later than you, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I agree, because I think he said in that podcast was, you know, if you do like a quarterback, then you might want to be willing to take him at 3, because if you do this stupid thing and trade back, you might end up with no Abdul Carter and not your quarterback. And then you wake up on J2 going, we didn't get Jackson Dart, who we loved, and we didn't get Abdul Carter. How did that happen? So don't do anything cute. I do find the Giants interesting though for another reason. Let's say they go Abdul Carter. So, well, for the sake of this, we'll go Travis Hunter, and then we'll go Abdul Carter. If they go Abdul Carter, one of the rumors that is starting to fly around is, hey, we don't need all these guys. Kayvon Thibodeau is a guy that we could package to get back up into the first round, or maybe get a 4th round pick out of, or something like that.
Yep.
So it is interesting that is the conversation. I think that's the right conversation, by the way. Yep. I remember the Kayvon Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson conversations, and I'm like, listen, I'm an Oregon Duck fan. I watch Kayvon Thibodeau all the time. He's not as good as Aiden Hutchinson, and I got a lot of pushback for that. And guess what? He's not as good as Aiden Hutchinson. So, but he's still an effective player. I think a lot of teams would love to have a player like that. And there's definitely some juice there, athletic player, and teams always think that they can get the best out of prospects anyway. So that being said, if they go Abdul Carter, could you see a scenario where they do trade Kayvon Thibodeau throughout the process of the draft?
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about that is it's really neat if you think about, like, hey, I could get capital, like Jesse, like let's say it's a 4th. You might be getting something that ends up being a chip that you put back to another team in that same draft, right? Because they're looking at this as like, hey, we're not going to get in the sunk cost fallacy. We're going to be like, we got this player. Maybe we don't have to get rid of Tipper, but if we do, we can do that. And I'm positioning myself maybe to get back and to get. I mean, the Giants. That's a team that's been rumored talking about getting up, already talking to the teams like the Commanders to say, hey, can I get up to 29? Yeah, and that's what I've never heard anything like that before. Actually, I mean, I've been a draft junkie. I've never heard the day before the draft um, rumors about teams already working the phones to try to get up from like 33 or 34 up to 29 already. Because I think there's so many things that could go on before that. I know that those calls happen, but I've never seen reports of that getting out of the building that have legs. And that I wonder if it's going to backfire a little bit, because it just kind of feels like they're uh, projecting all of their moves, and maybe there's a little smoke there. But yeah, I can see the Kayvon Thibodeau trade if they go Abdul Carter. I don't think they have to trade Kayvon Thibodeau. I think they could. I think you can never have too many edge rushers, and pairing them with Brian Burns. I mean, bring guys in waves. The 49ers have been at their best. That's what they were able to do. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they cook up tomorrow. But I can't see Brian Dable and Joe Shane. I mean, yeah, Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. I'm sorry, that doesn't. I mean, doesn't engender a lot of excitement for me.
No,
And
I agree.
so I don't think it does for them too. And the human factor is, this is the funny thing is, man, when you're saying these guys are fighting for jobs, but they're trying to build a long-term roster, and I think that's it's not a good place to be as a franchise when you're in those situations with your back to the wall. So it's going to be that. I think the Giants are the most interesting team, one of the most interesting teams in the draft for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to bring this up. Brash says, hey, Walter Nolan has a decent chance of being there at 43. Surprised me. No, that's the latest. Here's the thing. I think when we've been doing mocks, all of a sudden, Walter Nolan has been one of the more interesting prospects where early on he was so coveted by a lot of people at pick
Hmm.
11 specifically. And then there was a lot of talks that he could get into the 20s. And then as the process has gone on, you may have mocked and seen him fall to 43. It's like, whoa, Walter Nolan at 43. This is crazy today, and I would say over the last 72 hours, all the people that are talking about Walter Nolan are now saying he might go top 10.
Yeah.
So 43 is not going to happen. It doesn't seem, if you're going based off of what the guys who are the insiders are saying, and it's not just one, it's multiple of them now saying he might go top 10, and it might be Mason Graham that falls out of the top 10, Walter Nolan taking his spot. That is the big conversation that's been happening. So,
Yep.
Walter Nolan at 43, I would get that out of your mind. That's not going to
No,
happen.
it's not. It's Walter. Yeah, I don't know how. There's a thing that we get a lot of smoke, or we got a lot of news about. Hey, these guys are going to go in the top 10, and then I kind of stopped and thought about it, and I looked at all these rumors, which I think are, all legitimate in their own ways of reporting what they're getting. And you're like, well, if that's the case, there's only 10 spots, and I'm seeing a lot of players that you're talking about being, oh, this is a dark one. So yeah, Walter Nolan absolutely could fall out of the top 10. I think
Yeah.
there's a really good chance that happens. But I think there's a better chance he goes in the top 10 than he goes past 20.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I agree.
so I yeah, 43, that's just a pipe dream. That's not happening. And I think this is where mock draft machines are really fun, but they're also just I mean, I think they're good. I would say waste of time because I spend way too much time doing it and tinkering around with it, right? But yeah, they're deceptive, and I think what the media wants, or what the media says, or even new media people, or even people that are really good scouts and like do all this prep work, like any of us, really. You got to pay attention and listen to people you trust a little bit more, and also just kind of go
Yeah.
with your own evaluation. Stop looking at the projections that everybody else has. Consensus can be fine, but that be willing to make your own opinion based on what you watch. And I think that's what you're seeing with Walter Nolan. Is if you look at his film, there can be people quibbling, but the bottom line is people getting their narratives based on this, the rumors about, oh, his character, oh, he takes plays off, oh, well, when you get through a lot of that stuff and you just watch the tape and you look at what he can do, I mean, this guy has the potential to be the steal of the draft. I mean,
I
he
agree.
could be. I mean, that's the thing. You're taking a guy that could end up being, and this is not hyperbolic. He could end up being the best player in the draft. He has that type of. I mean, he was the number one overall high school recruit for a reason,
Yeah.
right? The dude's juice and power and strength at his side. It's impressive, and I do think he'll be in the top 10, and I would not mind the Niners trying to finagle their way up a couple spots if they want to secure him.
Yeah, and I've got a couple people in the draft, or in the chat. Mitchell and Ness is one. Appreciate you, Mitchell and Ness, and um, I've got a couple more. Trying to remember. Oh, Kenny's another one. They think Nolan sucks like that, which I don't understand. Like, I got to know. Like, it's one thing to say, hey, I don't like this prospect. I got to know from those of you that don't like Walter Nolan, which is fine. It's okay to disagree based off of what games. And
Exactly.
I don't want to hear, oh, well, there's rumors that in practice he walks off the field. I don't, no, 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 no. What games did you watch from this season that gives you any indication
Yep.
that Walter Nolan is not a good football player? I would love to know it because I've watched them
It-
and I don't see that at all. So I would love to know how you're breaking down the game to
yep.
tell me that you watched him play and was like, yeah, when he was getting double teamed all game by Georgia on
Oh,
the interior
okay.
offensive line,
Yep.
all three of those guys are going to be top 100 picks potentially, and they had to double team him because he was too much. I would love to know where in that you saw a bad player. I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I didn't even want. It's been a while since I watched that the whole game, but I went back and looked at like his best. Like he had, as I recall, I mean, there were like 15 snaps that were just he was clear he was the best guy on the field. And the other times, like you said, when you're getting chipped, when you're getting double, and you got Jared Wilson, you got Dylan Fairchild, you got Tate Ratledge. You said top 100. There's a chance those guys all go to top 75. You
I
know,
know.
like I
Yeah.
mean, and so it doesn't get bad. And those are interior linemen, so those guys usually go lower. So you're going up against. I mean, that's like you're going up against Murderers Row, and he was clearly outclassing them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he put Jared Wilson on his ass, right? And Jared Wilson was pulling him down. Like it was like Jared Wilson, you could see him kicking. He was like this. He like kicked the ground. He was like so frustrated, right? Like I mean, this is the type of dude this dude is. Like when he's on, it's there's no. I don't believe at his best. That's where I've really recalibrated how I look at him, and I know that he has some detractors, but boy, at his best, it's hard to find a prospect that's much better than he is.
Well, and this is the other thing I keep hearing. It's like somehow we've like conflated what we've heard with the practice rumors with all of a sudden he takes plays off and isn't a hard worker on the field, which also doesn't show. Like when you remember the first thing I said, David, remember he was the first prospect I watched during this whole you guys had already been months in.
Yep.
But early February, I started this process, maybe late January. I started this process, and he was the first prospect I watched. And before any of this rumor stuff came out, I go, the most impressive thing about him is he doesn't stop moving. He's constantly, if the ball is in play, he is chasing it down. And specifically against Georgia, where there was a play where he was lined up 4-eye on the left side of the defensive line, and the ball went far hash outside the numbers over here. Nobody else made a tackle, and he chased it all the way down and made a play.
I know exactly
and that
what
is
play you're
all
talking
over his film. He doesn't stop. So I don't understand this. Oh, he gets lazy and takes plays. I don't see that when I watch him.
I also don't understand what this idea is that he's this bad run defender. Like I honestly, and this is the thing that kills me in this whole process. Like, like you talk about starting months ahead, like even the college season, I always be like, hey, if somebody pops off the screen to me, and even if they end up being a scrub down the road, I'll be like, hey, this guy's got my attention. Let me go look at this. Like Walter Nolan, I don't understand like where these narratives start, where even his metrics are like, they're above solid. They're like almost like Mason. They're close to Mason Graham levels of this the run. I was like, and I don't understand where. I don't think people watch, and I think people just kind of run with. I was talking earlier today about even another prospect, James Pierce. Like, oh, I heard from some guy that lives down in, so and so town that was near Knoxville, Tennessee, and they live there. I said, I don't really care that they live there. Like, what does that even mean? Like, you run in these narratives in your head. So, yeah, I don't get it. I guess and Marco was putting on us from the beginning, Marco Martinez, and I'm watching and I'm watching and I'm watching. It took me a little time at first. I was like, okay, is this guy as really as good as you think? And I'm like, the more I'm watching, I'm like, how do I not love this guy? I think my own narratives were in my head in a little bit, and that's embarrassing to admit, right? You start to kind of maybe not look as close at somebody because you're trusting something somebody else told you that you didn't see for yourself, and that's not how you scout players.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's just I just don't see that when I watch him, but we'll see. I mean, that's what's great about all these things is that we'll all eventually find out, and I just hope he's a Niner and we get to watch it together week in and week out, because what often happens a lot is a player ends up on another team. Nobody, the conversation kind of gets forgotten, or people box score scout because they don't actually watch the player. And they're like, oh, see, told you, X, Y, and Z. I was right because look at his sacks, or I was right because he didn't have any sacks, or, whatever the conversation. But if he's a 49er, we're all going to get to watch it snap in and snap out. So, that's what I'm hoping for here. Also, though, it's funny because it's like a lot of people that are like, Walter Nolan and James Pierce, they take a play off here or there, or I heard that they did practice. It's like, but also Mike Green, like I get okay, who cares? A couple essay allegations, like why aren't we taking him at 11? It's like, oh, okay, so you're willing to do that? That's crazy.
Well, what's hilarious to me about Mike Green is that I don't know what I'm missing on this. Mike Green does not break out until his third year, his second year at Marshall.
Yeah.
The clips that everybody shows is against, I can't remember his name's James, not James. I think it's James Pryor,
Mhm.
or Fryer, who's a tackle who's draft eligible, I believe, from Ohio State. He's going to be UDFA. He was abusing a right tackle who's not even a draftable prospect, right? And because it was, the scar, the Ohio State, it's like, see, look at him beating up big competition. I think, I think Mike Green has all the potential to be a really good player. But like you said,
Yeah.
he's got some huge red flags, and they're not completely illegitimate. Like there's some serious, serious character concerns. On top of the fact that he's doesn't have any, he's not that long, and I feel like he gets swallowed up against, and takes him and washes himself out of plays. So yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I think there's just guys that get these little narratives to follow him, and I think that teams are going to regret, or fans will regret when they're like kind of immersing themselves in those narratives to the point where they're blinded to the talent.
Well, and I want to point out, we talk about Mike Green and Walter Nolan specifically here. I want to point out that the Senior Bowl is a really good example of
Yeah.
this. Mike Green, and he wasn't the only one, so I don't want to just say Mike Green, but Mike Green, amongst other players, showed up to the Senior Bowl. They did the one-on-ones, tried to put out that film for people, and then they left before the game because they didn't care. They were just there to put on a show for a day or two, and then they dipped. Walter Nolan didn't do that. While a lot of other top prospects were leaving, he stayed for the game all week long. So for a guy who isn't a good teammate and walks off practice fields and whatever,
Yep.
he sure didn't show that during the Senior Bowl. He risked himself. He could have gotten injured. He didn't need to do any of that, but he did. He
Mm-hmm.
committed to doing something, and he followed through the whole weekend and was there. So,
Yep. I agree.
all right. Patriots. Do we?
Oh
The
boy.
Patriots are the first trade out candidate, I think, here at 4, like realistic trade out candidate. It
I agree
seems.
with you.
Yeah.
And nobody seems to be talking about it. And if I'm the Patriots, I am absolutely, and I'm not charging much to get out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Not
this is the
either.
thing. They were talking about Will Campbell. Everybody's mocking him. Will Campbell's not the fourth best prospect in this draft, man. Like,
No.
you just don't draft guys who aren't, to me, I don't even have Will Campbell Will Campbell's not even he's not a top 10 prospect to me in this draft. Okay. So when you're drafting that high, people say, well, no, do not draft for need at 4. Right. Yeah. Jay. Yeah. Jay. Uh, and so what they do, I hope, there have been rumors about the Bears are trying whatever they can do to trade up and maybe draft Ashton Genty or do something like that. If I'm the Patriots, man, I have no problem going all the way down to 10. I absolutely don't, because I think the parity at this point is just, it's kind of a horse apiece. And why would I sit at 4? Why not get more pieces on a roster that's still got holes, even despite the additions of Milton Williams and others, right? So this is the one that I'm confused on, because everybody seems to be saying Will Campbell, but we've been told, there could be some love for Armand Membu there. Do they say, screw it, Ashton Genty's the best player on our board, we're taking him? I'm not going to be surprised by that. I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like if they're not willing to take Genty there, then you should move back. Like if the Bears have got to have Genty and they're worried about him possibly going 5 to the Panthers, which is a real possibility, it sounds like all of a sudden, then let them, because whether you get Campbell, Membu, or Banks, I mean, you're getting one of the top 3 offensive line prospects in most people's minds.
Yep.
That we can talk about Simmons and some of these other guys, but overall, the difference between Campbell and the other two is not great enough to just take Campbell there.
I'm
If
not
you can get out,
convinced.
if you
I'm
can
not
get out,
convinced Campbell's better than those two. That's the
I'm
thing.
not either. I'm
And
not either.
I don't think there. I'm not convinced Campbell's a tackle. And
Either.
so like I said, Kelvin Banks, I don't think is a tackle either. So like,
Yeah.
but yet this idea that it's weird to me that the Patriots were sitting there saying, "Oh, we're going to take Hunter or Carter if Shador goes to 2 to the Browns." Well, now all of a sudden they don't need it. I mean, they were going to take a guy who's either wide receiver, corner, or an edge player, so they don't have to have a tackle there either. I mean, I just feel like, to me, there's not a lot of discrepancy between the fourth ranked player and the ninth ranked player in this draft. I strongly believe that. And so if I'm the Patriots, I'm doing whatever I can, and I'm not going to charge. Nobody's paying a quarterback premium to go up, and they're not paying the Travis Hunter Abdul Carter premium. It's kind of like an NBA draft. Somebody had said this in a podcast. I think somebody had said this in the podcast I was listening to. It was a great moment. It's like, this is one of those top heavy NBA draft kind of things where it's like, oh, after these first three, the difference is in the NFL, there's a lot of good players left still. But it's like, those
Yeah.
are the three elite consensus players. There's not going to be a lot of capital that's required. Like, well, yeah, it's the number 4 pick. Yeah, this is a different draft, man. So I said the Giants are the most interesting. The Patriots, this is the crux of the draft for me a little bit, because
This is
whatever
where the
goes one,
draft really starts, it seems like. Yeah.
yeah. And then there's a bunch of other little things that happen all the way before the Niners get to. There's so much uncertainty to me. There's so many different directions these guys could go. So the Patriots, I mean, if we want to go chalk and you say Will Campbell or Armand Membu, um, would you take a Jalen Walker? Would you take Ashton Genty? I don't.
Yeah.
This is the one that's really just giving me fits.
Yeah, it is me too. I feel most comfortable going with Will Campbell because that's what we've heard for the longest. But I think that this could get interesting at 4. Really could get
Yep.
interesting at 4. And I look at it and I see Will Campbell, who's right next to Mason Graham, by the way. So are you good just putting Will Campbell here? Like, we're not
Let's
going to
do
make
it.
any trades,
Yeah,
so let's
let's do
just
it.
assume that they're going to
Yep.
draft. Now, Will Campbell, much like Will Campbell, the consensus at 5 for a long time, up until this last couple days, has been Mason Graham.
Yep.
Talk about an overrated prospect, in my opinion. My gosh.
Yeah.
The way that people talk about Walter Nolan, they should be talking about Mason Graham.
And I think Mason Graham can be a very solid NFL player. And I think that that's when you get to scout, though, the prospect and not the production. And if you look at him and his size profile, I'm sorry, like, he didn't know testing, and he wasn't hurt. Like, I see a player that doesn't. I don't know if this really translates. I don't see a souped up dude that's, particularly for his lack of length and his and height. And I mean, I was just talking to Javi Vega today. He sent me a picture of him, and Javi was like, "Oh man, I don't know if I can do this body type, man. Dude doesn't look like a starter." I said, "Yeah, but look at his feet. He's like 6'3", and he's got like, you know, size 9s. Like, what's going on with that? Like, I don't know." Like, it's like John Wayne. John Wayne was like 6'5", and he has, that's why he always walked weird. And I say, like, maybe I don't know if this dude's I'm just, all jokes aside. Yeah, I don't think Mason Graham's not going 5. I'm going to make that 100% guarantee. The Jaguars will not take Mason Graham.
I don't think they're going
And
to either.
I think there have been talk about, hey, it's going to be a skill position. I've whittled it down to who I think it's going to be at this point, because James Gladstone, the GM, they said they want high character guys, but they also, there's too many rumors around Ted McMillan, to me, that have been there's too much smoke there from a lot of different people that really had doubted his drive. There have been some rumors about, once Jed Fish left and all these other different things, that he kind of started to puff up the chest a little bit. And at 5, for a guy who, I don't know, struggles to separate and is more of a contested catch kind of, like, I'm not big on these. If that's your calling card, contested catch at number 5. And Juwan Jennings makes contested catches as a possession receiver. I'm not looking for that necessarily, and I don't think he has game breaking speed either. I just don't think he's going to be a special player, and so I think it's this Ashton Genty.
JC from the top rope says, Jesse, I personally think we can get Kobe Bryant at pick 262.
Right.
This is funny because if you know, the smartest guy in the room put out his one and only mock draft because he's above the whole process, and proceeded to take many players 100 picks behind consensus. So
I mean,
make sure that you give a follow.
I mean, also, if you're going to do something, take a linebacker who could be a UDFA in the 4th round. That is
For sure.
an off-ball linebacker
Yeah.
that would be your linebacker 4. Do
Mhm.
that. Spend an early day 3 pick on a guy who you probably can pick up, and give a phone call to his agent right after Mr. Irrelevant goes on the stage.
Yeah, that's also a good idea.
Yep.
I agree with you, by the way, here. I think Ashton Genty's going to be the pick too. I
Mhm.
really do. So we'll go Ashton Genty here. I also think that if Ashton Genty's there at 6, I think there's a possibility. I don't think he's the guy though. If he is there at 6, I
I
don't
don't
think
either.
the Raiders are going to go Ashton Genty if he is there. I really look at Membu
I do too.
personally
Yep.
as probably the pick there at 6.
That's my mock right now that I've had is I'm still up in the air with the Patriots, but I've been just begrudgingly putting Will Campbell. But
Yeah.
I've been going, um, like we just said, Ashton Genty and then Armand Membu to the Raiders. I think it makes too much sense. DJ Glaze is not the answer. He can go right to swing tackle. You're Armand Membu is the third best. He's my number 3 overall prospect in the draft. I don't understand what there's not to like. He has requisite length. He has requisite size. He's incredibly. I mean, I feel like the best all around athlete at the position, but he's not just Guyton that was drafted by the Cowboys last year, right? He's not just some like testing freak. Like he looked like a man among boys in the SEC. He absolutely dominated. And people kind of quibble about right tackle. Well, Penei Sewell, Brian O'Neill, Brian Ramczyk. Uh, I know I'm missing a good Tristan Wirfs. Those are
Mhm.
like elite tackles, like all pro tackles, right? They all play right tackle. And Armand Membu is, to me, I think it would be a home run pick for the Raiders.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm glad that we agree here, which means we're probably wrong. Okay, so so let's for the Jets, to me, when I look at the Jets, I think if Membu's there, he's a possibility. I could see them when we talk about Graham. I could see a potential for him going there, and then I really see Tyler Warren
I do too.
going there. They absolutely flirted with taking Brock Bowers last year, and after watching Bowers play, you know that they're like, oh my gosh, we could have had that guy. What the hell? And
Yep.
so now that there's a player, we disagree. You know, we think that Loveland is possibly as good or better potentially, but a lot of people do think that he is the number 1 tight end, and I think he's a good prospect. I don't know that they will pass on another who they believe potentially as another top flight tight end 2 years in a row, because I do think that they wish they had gotten Brock Bowers last year.
And I think it's just I don't believe that Justin Fields is in their long term plans. I don't think,
I
or
don't either.
he could end up being something that sticks for a little bit, but he's going to be a journeyman. Let's be real with that, right? But I think in that capacity, if you're drafting a Tyler Warren, you are looking at a guy that you're looking as a 10-year player in your team, but I think is also he's a guy that can now. Do I think he was gadgety? Do I think that Kodolnicki at Penn State overused him and actually could have like used Drew Aller as a real quarterback once in a while and actually targeted receivers but yeah, I think he has the ability to do all those things. I think his game speed is good enough. I don't think though that this is the thing that I'm confused with him is that I think in any other draft, um, particularly with just where there was just more higher blue chip talent at any position, I don't think we're talking about him. And I think it's the tight end, but it's also because he was just doing all the funky stuff at Penn State. I think he's elevated because of the lack of super high end quality at the top of the first round in this draft. And if not, I don't think people would be talking about him as much because nobody really talks about guys that are sitting around 22, 23, 26. And I think
Yeah.
that's really the type of prospect he is a bottom of the first round guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think they go Tyler Warren? We agree
Yeah, let's
here?
go Tyler Warren. I think that's fun. Let's do that.
Now, this is a spot that is interesting to me because I feel
Ooh.
like if the 49ers were to trade up, this would be where.
Yes.
So like if a Membu were to fall to this point, I could see them trading up here. Or if they really like Kelvin Banks and they're worried that Kelvin Banks could go in the next 2 spots after this, or even to the Panthers, which is a possibility, by the way. I mean, I look at the Panthers, I look at the Saints, and I look at the Bears and say there is an offensive line need at tackle. And if they love Banks and if the 49ers love Banks, there's a chance he doesn't make it there. So we've heard rumors that Carolina is looking to move back, and it sounds like they're willing to take less than what you would normally take to do so, knowing how this draft is shaping up. So I look at the 49ers and think this is a real possibility here where the 49ers might move up a couple spots, not have to give up a lot. I mean, maybe they give up pick 160 or something like that, 138, and they just, all right, here you go. And they get their guy, whether that's Nolan or Banks or whoever that is. I think that's a possibility. Obviously, tonight we're not going to do that. But do you look at the Carolina Panthers as a potential trade up candidate for the 49ers at all, or do you just think no chance?
Yes, and they're one of the few teams in the top. Well, there's a bunch of teams, but they're one of the what's been rumored. I think there were a couple of reports that were out that the Panthers are really one of those teams that are absolutely amenable to moving back. And I think at that point in the draft for them, if particularly if they were moving down to 11, I mean, if you've got so here's a group of players that I'm considering a date for the Panthers. I'm not saying I would do it. I'm trying to be predictive here.
Yeah.
So Jalen Walker, okay, Mason Graham. Remember, the Panthers were a team that were hot for Milton Williams and lost out, right? So defensive tackle, obviously Walter Nolan, right? So
I agree.
I think that they could use. I mean, if we're really being honest, they could add another cornerback with J.C. Horn. They could look at a guy like Jahdae Barron, right?
Yep.
I mean, there are a lot of possibilities here, and so to me, jumping down 3 spots and picking up extra capital for getting a guy that's in their sphere, or a guy like Mykel Williams. I've heard that Carolina really loves Mykel Williams, and so to me, if I'm Carolina at that point, I'm like, okay, cool. I got like 5 or 6 dudes I'm good with. I know I'm going to get 2 of them, at least 3 of them at 11. Okay. This is a roster that's on the rise. Bryce Young had the nice little resurgence, but let's be real. This team ain't close to contending yet. I think getting any way you could get any type of capital. If I'm the 49ers, I'm giving up 75. I think 75 would easily get it done. I think they might even be able to just give up 100 in that situation. But maybe not. I think I'd be happy to give up 75 to go and secure my guy at 8. But I also can understand the Niners waiting as well.
Yeah, this one's tough. So if the 49ers or team doesn't move up and the Panthers are there, I agree. I mean, that's 4 or 5 guys. And I think today 2 people, and I forget who it was, mocked Walter Nolan to this spot. Like this was the top 10 spot where people would put him, and they said, hey, for much of the same reasons, they missed out on a high profile defensive tackle during the free agency period. They believe that Walter Nolan's a better prospect than Mason Graham, and so they've mocked him there. It does sound like they're pretty much going to go defense. Almost everybody agrees there if they pick, especially at 8. And now all of a sudden Walter Nolan might end up there.
I
think Jalen Walker's the pick, though.
I do too. I do too, and I thought Jalen Walker would be off the board before. I'd been mocking Jalen Walker to the Jaguars. I really thought the Jaguars would throw it for a loop, but then when I started hearing more smoke about Genty being the apple of their eye a little bit, that swayed me. But I also thought Jalen Walker could be a guy, going to the Jets. I thought Jalen Walker could be a guy, anywhere, even the Patriots. I still think I'm not going to be surprised if he's the pick at 4. I'm not high on Jalen Walker as you are, right? And so, but I think Jalen Walker's the pick here. I think people just absolutely love his athleticism, but they love you talk about a dude on the mic, right? He's Fred Warner on the mic. Like, he's just that personality. He's like the guy that you want to market. He's the guy that you want to go, do the photo ops with kids in the community. Like, he's a dude, the locker room guy. And a couple of lines I've read, like, people said, dude, this guy's a dude, but you get that guy in the locker room when you draft this guy. And like, okay. And Marco's talking about this, other people talk about it. The draft's political. People love the Boy Scouts. And if they can meld the Boy Scout with like a high athletic ceiling, I mean, it's no I can't see Jalen Walker falling out of the top 10. I just don't see that.
I don't either. But when you go through the mock process, I can see how you can almost not even take him until like 19 or 20 based off of what teams might do. Like there is, that's what makes this thing so interesting, is there is multiple possibilities for a lot of these teams. Like I don't know for sure,
Well,
obviously.
yep.
So
And
uh,
you really love Jalen Walker. I'm not as
I
high
like
on him,
Jalen
but
Walker.
I do think he's a very good player. I will say
Yeah.
this though, in this draft, in this 8 to 13, 15 range, your job is to draft potentially elite players when you're this high in
Mhm.
the draft, right? You don't want to like draft busts, but nobody does. But I think Jalen Walker is one of those guys where teams are like, hey, high character, high athlete. I know he's kind of a little undersized tweener for edge, but so is Micah Parsons. Is he Micah Parsons? Of course not. But could he be? If that's a seal, could he be that element? Could I have him off ball? There's just so much there that can hit. And that's why I completely understand. And I wouldn't be mad at the 49ers took Jalen Walker either, because I understand at this premium slot in the draft, that's exactly the type of guy that you're trying to go after.
Yeah, and Jalen Walker, much like a lot of these prospects, I mean, gosh, top 10. In a normal draft, I wouldn't be stoked about it, but in this draft, I'm cool with it.
Yep.
And to me, I can't not see Hassan Reddick. I mean, the build, the profile is identical. The fact that they both played potentially out of position, Hassan Reddick more so in the pros. I mean, the first 2 years he was with the Cardinals, nobody really knew who he was. They thought he was a bust and he wasn't going to be a good player. And I'll never forget my boy Rad that I used to do this show with, the Lions fan. He told me that the offseason before they actually made the change, he goes, if they put Hassan Reddick and turn him into an edge, he is going to be a beast in the NFL. I'm like,
Yep.
really? You think so? And he was right. They did it surprisingly,
Yep.
and he was exactly that. And that's how I see Jalen Walker. I'm like, listen, I don't see a lot of people like, oh, Micah Parsons. That's the comparison they go to. That's pretty high. I'm
Yep.
not going that crazy, but when I look at the athletic profile and a guy who played, a true linebacker at some points, I just see Hassan Reddick, and if you make him a true edge, I think you can get similar production out of him. And I think Hassan Reddick, again, I don't know if that's a guy that you would traditionally want in the top 10. You would hope for a little bit better, but Hassan Reddick's had a good career now. I
Oh,
mean, that's he's
oh.
been a good player. So
If you could go back to any draft, you were saying Hassan Reddick, and you knew Hassan Reddick in this draft would become the player that he did. Oh, he's a
yeah.
top 5 player, right? Like just because of the unknown. Now, not after we get a couple of years of these guys, obviously that could be different. But like with the unknowns of everybody involved, and you knew, hey, I'm getting 22-year-old Hassan Reddick, and I know he's going to become what he is. Of course, he's a top 10 player in this draft,
Mhm.
right? Like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and this is where I disagree, Mitchell and Ness. I mean, again, literally just go look at Hassan Reddick, height, weight, arm length, all of it, and then look at Jalen Walker. They identical athletic profile. I mean, it is if anything, Hassan Reddick is slightly lighter by a few pounds. I think he's like 4 or 5 pounds lighter, but they're
Yep.
roughly the same, man. And Hassan Reddick has made a living getting after the quarterback, most famously ripping off the arm of Brock Purdy in an NFC championship. So there you go.
Yep.
Okay, so Saints here. This one
Mm.
is I it's interesting when the Carr news came out, because it did seem for about 48 hours like, oh, they're going quarterback. It's going to be Shador or whoever here. Now I think they're not at all going quarterback. A lot of options here as well.
I don't know.
For me, oh, okay. Oh, I've got it narrowed down to two for them. I'm curious to see who you say.
I think this could be. There's a bunch of cruxes in the draft in this one, right? There's so much.
Okay.
I love it. There's so much uncertainty. I mean, at the top,
I
you
know.
kind of got chalk at 3, but like there is so much uncertainty here. I Oh boy, I feel like the Saints. Loomis. He's a wild card. He doesn't care about trading picks. I don't know exactly know what they've been doing for the last several years in their roster construction. They're not a good team. They're in a rough spot. Um, and they hired Kellen Moore, which I hope goes well for them. And obviously, Kellen just won a Super Bowl, so kudos. Um, I think this could be a quarterback here. I think this could be where we see a quarterback, and I don't know who it's going to be. Is
Can I
I
can I
don't
make a prediction if they go quarterback?
Please.
It'll be Milroe if they go quarterback.
Oh, see,
I don't know why I've got this weird feeling that if they were to go quarterback,
yeah.
it wouldn't be Sanders or Dart. It would be Milroe, and it would just everybody be like, "What the hell just happened?"
See, I don't think it's Milroe, but I also don't think it's Shadur. I think it's
Okay.
Dart or Tyler Shuck. And
Oh,
I think
that would be.
this is where I'm telling you, now
Oh,
listen to this. Michael Penix last year to the Falcons.
yeah.
There were teams that thought Michael Penix could fall out of the first round. Right? There were a lot
True.
of people thought that Bo Nix. Nobody knew if Bo Nix or Michael Penix was good. That was never consensus that those guys were going to go that high at all, right? And so all of a sudden, now Tyler Shuck, I don't get it, right? He made my All Cabo Boys mock draft about a month or so ago, right? And I mean, I drafted him in the 7th round. Okay, he's 26. He'd be 26 years old. He's gonna be the only rookie on the team that can rent a car, right? So like he does. Like but this is the thing. People say, well, it was broken bones were his injuries. So, those are freak acts. I'm like, dude, he broke bones 3 years in a row in his torso. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I get you, it's a tough sport, but he played college football for 7 years. Like, I don't understand how. I get it. I know I get it. Like, but what is a realistic future for this? But there are teams that love him. There are teams that say, "Hey, if you're don't think about age, who cares?" I'm like, and I get it. Quarterbacks play long, but oof. If it's Tyler Shuck tomorrow, man, it's going to be awesome. I am gonna absolutely celebrate the hell out of that pick.
And I want to clarify my take here on Jalen Walker. Dank Dank and Brash Cat brought it up, and I think that might be where Mitchell and Ness was going as well.
Yeah.
I'm not saying for the 49ers. I like Jalen Walker, not for the 49ers. If I was taking a Georgia guy, it would be Michael Williams. Because you're right. In the wide nine, not the best fit. I'm just saying as a prospect, I think he can be very effective, get after the quarterback, much like Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick, I don't know, would have been the best fit here necessarily because of some of the weight and whatever.
Yeah.
But as far as a prospect goes, Jalen Walker meets those needs. But yes, Michael Williams, I would love to have. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, the Saints, if they go Shuck or if they go Jalen Milroe, it is going to be wild, wild, wild if it happens. So I'm here for it. I hope it does. Let's assume they don't go quarterback, though. What other prospects are you looking at? For me, I've got it narrowed down to two guys.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, Kelvin Banks. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Ramczyk just retired. I don't know that they were expecting that. He was only 30, but he's had a lot of injuries. Maybe they saw it coming. Either way, that's a big loss. I mean, you're talking about a team that 4 years ago was bookended by young tackles and Armstead and Ramczyk, and that was supposed to be the future. And here we are. They both retired in the same offseason now for different teams. So I think Kelvin Banks is at play here. And I think also we just talked about Michael Williams. I think he's at play here for them. I mean,
Jesse, you took
they
you
could
took
use
the
it as
words
well.
right out of my mouth, Ben. Like those are
Okay.
exactly the two. So we are on the same wavelength.
Lockstep.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So who do we want to go here with
Here,
at 9 just for this draft's sake?
and I'm not trying to make, it's funny. Like I don't want for the draft guys to so the Niners lame. I honestly think, and I'm not a big Kelvin Banks fan, but
Yeah.
I know people that really love him, like that I respect a lot. And I'm like, hey man, if
Yeah.
these people I respect, like I need to listen here. Um, I also think the Saints they drafted Taliesin Fuaga, who also was gonna like, hey, is this guy gonna play guard in the NFL out of Oregon State? And he ends up pulling over to left tackle. I think they probably could move him over to right tackle. Actually, I think that's what they're going to do. That's where he was more. That's more comfortable. And they had Ramczyk on the level, and Ramczyk gets hurt, right? And then he retires. So I honestly think that if I'm the Saints, there's been a lot of smoke coming out about how these tackles are going to go early, and that Kelvin Banks is loved by a lot more teams than people think. I think this is where I love Michael Williams, but boy, I can see the Saints really saying, "Hey, we can figure this quarterback thing out. I don't know if the guy's here right now. We can get a guy later. We might be in the draft next year. Let's see if Banks works out. And all of a sudden, I got Banks and Fuaga, and you get a rookie quarterback next year, and you've got two dudes that are young, but they're veterans now. Like that's a good place to be for a rookie quarterback to be walking into next year when you've got your bookends ready to go. I think, and after this fall off, even though I might disagree with it, I think a lot of guys in the league feel like after these three tackle prospects, there's a little bit of a gap. They still like them, but I think this is a good spot for Banks.
Yeah, I do as well, actually, and more so because the latest over the last 72 hours is a lot of people are saying three offensive tackles gone in the top 10.
Yep.
So this is, I mean, I guess the Bears obviously are an option here as well.
Yep.
But I think Kelvin Banks is is a good spot here. Okay. So here we are. The Bears, you would imagine they would love to have gotten Genty. In our scenario, we don't have anybody trading, so they were unable to trade up and get him. I think Tyler Warren is an option as well. Let me throw this out there.
No, Tyler Warren went to the Jets.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He was an option that they would love to have, but not available. Sorry, I didn't phrase that in the best way. But when I look at the Bears here, I do think that this is a spot where they may say, hey, we do have Mason Graham as our top prospect. And we didn't get Warren. We didn't get Genty. Defensive line is an area of need for us. I could see them going Mason Graham, but I could also see Amari and Hampton going here. I could see that second running back going.
I think the Bears will be smart. I think if they don't, I think they're going to try like hell to get up for Genty. I think if they miss on that, or if they can't get there, I think they're going to say, hey, I got picks 39 and 41. And if I really want to, and I really dead set on getting the guy I want in running back, I can always package those, or I can, to move back up into the first, or a combination of something else. They have got the ammunition to work with. I would not overdraft O'Marion Hampton here. I think it would be a situation where I'm looking at defensive line. I could be looking at cornerback. I could be looking at a lot of different things here. And they actually really need a corner. Really, I could see Jahdae Barron being a really good value here. I could also see Michael Williams being a good value here. So I'm going to leave this up to you. It's your show tonight. What are you thinking here?
Who were your two? You had Jahdae Barron and who else? Who was the other one?
Well, I had Jahdae Barron and Michael Williams.
Oh, yeah. Gosh damn it. Let's
I can also see a guy like Jihad Campbell, being something that I know he's got the injury, right? But if you're at 10 now and you've missed on your guys, and I get that he's got the injury, but he looks like he's going to recover. It just takes that recovery time, right? If you're Jihad Campbell, I have him as a prospect I think he's a better player than Jalen Walker. I think that Jihad Campbell is another one of those guys that he has the potential to be like, yeah, he's off-ball linebacker, yada, yada, yada. But boy, when we walk away from this, like, is he a top 10 player in this class? And so that's what I'm going to say, even if it's not complete. I'm going to say Jihad Campbell here. And maybe I'm wrong with the injury, but that's who I would probably, if I'm the Bears, I'm considering that. The injury.
Yeah, great one. To be fair, I don't know that he's their top prospect. I was just saying I could see a scenario where they could look at it and say that Graham is the top prospect. I don't know for sure though. I mean, everything that David's saying makes a lot of sense here. I really don't know. I think if certain guys fall to the Bears, it's very obvious what they're going to do, and if they can trade up, obviously it's pretty clear. But if they're here and the draft has gone exactly how it just went, I don't know. I mean, I think if Banks is there, that's a yes. If Warren is there, that's a yes. If Genty's there, that's a yes. Outside of that, this is a crapshoot for me.
Well, let's say this. I think we maybe suspend our own bias here. I think Mason Graham makes a lot of sense. I think that he does have a lot of love. I think there are some things that are really encouraging about him, especially if I look at some of his
Yeah.
analytic metrics about like his run to and he was playing a little dinged up this year too. Like there are some things that were kind of hobbling, like not major. The 2023 is even better. Like I can see this being a value meets need means like, hey, I think this guy could be, we might not have got the bell of the ball, but this will suffice.
Okay. Let's go with it before we
Okay.
change our mind.
Yep.
Okay. I saw an interesting comment here. I want to see. Maybe you saw it, David. Although
No.
you haven't said anything, so I doubt that you saw it as well. Where was it at? Hold on. Dang it. Hold on a second. Am I tripping? Hold on a second.
Hey.
I swear I saw. Oh, Steve-O says I watched Grant and Jesse get creamed on X. It was funny. I'm unaware. I mute, brother. When I say I mute everything that I tweet, I mean I mute everything that I tweet. So if I'm getting crushed on the timeline, I would be none the wiser. So I'm curious to see what the conversation is, but
I've never seen it. I haven't seen anything.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I mean, people have. I remember when I remember when the Trent Williams thing happened, and this was like 3 years ago or whatever, and I said, hey, Trent Williams still tipping plays, and then I
Oh yeah.
muted it and walked away from it, and like 6 hours later, I get on the phone with Vish, and he goes, dude, your post has gone viral. I'm like, what post? What are you talking about? And he goes, the Trent Williams one. He's like, everybody's commenting on it. All the analysts, all the professional players. I'm like, are you serious? And how do you not know this? I'm like, I don't know, dude. I mute my stuff. I have no idea that this is going crazy. So and then of course I jumped in and had a little fun with it. But yeah, I don't engage that much. Anymore, so.
If somebody is victory lapping George Kittle, like telling reporters that their sources are wrong and all this stuff like that, it's like, again, as our buddy Jay Descaro said, like, you got to either do one thing. It's like 49ers fans will like endlessly support their players and also their general managers, but guess who would have given that information to Diana Rossini or anybody else or whose sources about being contract? It would have been from the building. It would have been
Yeah.
John Lynch. It would have been like, what? It's a contract negotiation. Of course, it's coming from inside the building. Yes, the 49ers league. So it's like this idea that we get all mad at everybody, like, oh, Diana Rossini's a hack and yada yada. And I don't think she's that good either, like, to be quite honest. But like the idea, like, come on, man, like they're doing the team's bidding. Get with the times. And so yeah, I maybe you're getting victory lap for that. That'll be great because on the eve of the draft, nobody cares. Tomorrow's Christmas and
Yeah.
it's all forgotten.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get a lot of information from X, but when it comes to my own tweets, I just tweet and mute. I've got to imagine that it's probably Brock Purdy related. I would almost guarantee it is.
Wow.
Which
What
is
is
fine.
it? What
I don't
is
really
it?
care.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. We finally made it to the moment. The 49ers are here at 11. Let's recap just real quick what we've gone with. We went with Cam Ward 1, biggest surprise of the draft, really. Travis Hunter 2, Abdul Carter 3, Will Campbell 4. We kind of went chalk here. Ashton Genty 5, Armand Membu here at 6, Tyler Warren at 7, Jalen Walker at 8, Kelvin Banks 9, Mason Graham 10, and now the 49ers are on the clock. And this is crazy. Just a couple days ago, Walter Nolan on PFF, and I don't do a lot of PFF, but I think it is easier to show in this type of layout here than a lot of the other ones. Walter Nolan was like, I want to say like 26th ranked on PFF, and now he's all the way up to 7. You couple that with people saying he's going to go top 10 all of a sudden. This gets interesting, right? This gets really, really interesting.
This is like PFF. These are these populists, basically. They're like, they go which way the wind blows. Like, they have these rankings.
Yeah.
All of a sudden 26 to 7, just because you update your rankings to go closer to like what the latest news is. This is just so lame, because that's not how you're supposed to rank players, right? If you're doing predictive drafts, mock drafts, that's fine, but that's not where you should put the person in the ranking if that's not what you think. And all of a sudden, this is why I honestly, I always tell people, like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It's like these, like, we glorify these guys because they're on major publications. The reality is they put their pants on one leg at a time.
Yeah.
And they spend as much time as you or I looking at some of these players. And a lot of these guys, like, they're not former GMs, they're not former coaches in the league, they're not whatever. They're living, breathing pundits just like any one of us. And yeah. So I'll just say this: if I'm at 11, Walter Nolan, Michael Williams, right? I mean, I know that the Niners like Shamar Stewart too. I know that they respect Shamar Stewart.
Yep.
And I think Shamar Stewart's one of those dudes that, boy, you could be cooking with gas. You talk about, I mean, you could really be all gas, no brakes with this dude, and he's like the lump of clay, so to speak, that you can mold. I just don't know, man. To me, I got three dudes right there that have potential, like real high ceiling, like just athleticism and performance. To me, it's no brainer. Um, there's no guarantee that the guys that you want that are high end at DT are going to be there at 43 all the time or at 75. And I want to, if I'm not addressing OT, I want to address it with a premium player, the guy who could be the best player in the draft. I was a little slow to the uptick on this one. I didn't embrace it right away, but I would be ecstatic with Walter Nolan. I just feel like this to me should be you run the card in, and you're setting up shop for everything else that's going to come. Maybe even moving back up into the first for a guy you like.
I completely agree with you. I'd love to go Walter Nolan here. Kyle, or excuse me, John Lynch had a couple comments at the pre-draft press conference yesterday.
Yep.
One of them was when he was asked about drafting an edge and what do you look for? And he said, well, the first thing is you look for a player who can set the edge. And then he made a comment, I think it was earlier in the press conference, not related, but just in general talked about, at some point when you're looking at these prospects, you have to get past the measurables. And if they weren't able to put things on film, you have to trust that. So when I hear those two things
Mhm.
combined, I go, Michael Williams, yes.
Yep.
Shamar Stewart, no. But then I also know that they love to talk to their position coaches. And Chris Kosirik, the rumor is out in the ether that he loves Shamar Stewart.
Yep.
So that is conflicting with what was said there by John Lynch. Do you think that the 49ers, when they're looking at this pick, they are truly looking at Shamar Stewart as an option here? Because I
Yes,
do.
I do too. And we're talking about a
Yeah.
team that drafted Javon Kinlaw, um, at 14. And
Yeah.
look, Javon Kinlaw has developed into a real serviceable NFL player, but not a
Yeah.
first round caliber talent.
Yeah.
You know, um, And Javon Kinlaw had that. I don't, but Javon Kinlaw didn't even have like the athletic. I mean, Shamar Stewart. I think I'm right on this. I think he's like is he number 1 or 4 or something like that overall, like all time RAS scores for like his
Yeah.
size. I mean, it's
Incredible.
and when you watch him play, he actually does get a lot of pressure. He doesn't have a lot of tools in his pass rush skill tool belt, but I think these are things that you kind of take a look at, say what he was asked to do, and kind of playing inside the tackle quite a lot, right over the top, and must have plugged the run. Sometimes a little undisciplined, but boy, if you really do coach this guy up and work with what his floor already is, his ceiling is insane. I think his floor is higher than people think. So the Niners I know like him. Um, but I think that's the three players they're considering there. I think they're looking
I
at,
do too.
because Mason Graham's gone, if they were considering that at all, and you're looking at Michael, you're looking at Shamar, and you're looking at Walter Nolan, and I think at the end of the day, they're like, look, we got to figure out the defensive tackle. We might have the worst defensive tackle room. This is, again, no hyperbole. The
No.
49ers may have the worst defensive line. And that includes, and that's no shade on Nick Bosa. Like, with Nick Bosa, this team still, I don't think it's even a question. I don't think it's a
It's
question.
crazy to say that,
I
but
think
it's
they're the worst
probably
defensive
true.
line in the NFL.
Yeah.
No depth, nothing. They have nobody.
Yeah. They've got to fix that quick. Quick.
So if you don't go after a guy like this, like Walter Nolan, who has the potential to maybe be a guy that people wish they would have taken number 2 or number 3, like, to me, this has just got to be the pick. And this is why I feel the more I think about it. I know you and I both like Michael Williams. Um, I think there's been some things that have get a little doubt in my head of like, I was out on him early, but then I didn't realize he had a completely legitimate ankle injury that was really,
Mhm.
really restricting him. And when I learned that, I was like, oh, this dude, okay, that explains a lot. Then I went back and looked at 2023. I'm like, okay, and he's still 20 years old. No, like this guy, to me, Michael Williams is the highest floor in the draft of any of these players on the defensive line. That's exciting, but his potential being high as well. I can absolutely see the 49ers in love with Michael. I absolutely can see that. Um, I like Michael that way. But at the end of the day, I'm like, was it the injury, or is he at his ceiling with his juice? And I don't look at and I don't see that with Nolan. I see Nolan with the guy that's the most upside of all of them, and also ready to go day one. And I think that's too much for the 49ers to pass up.
Trip Basis says, guys, you have a lot of picks to do. Can we talk and select tonight? We're
No,
only, this is it. We're
we're
just
done.
going to the 49ers tonight.
And my wife,
Tomorrow, however, we're going to be on an hour before the draft starts, and advice taken, because you're right. There's no way we're making it through all 32 if we do what we did tonight. We wanted to go more in depth tonight, but tomorrow before the draft, we will be live throughout the draft, and we will do all 32 teams, and we'll be much quicker about it because we have to get through all of them. But I know that you got to go real quick, though. I do want to say on Michael Williams, not only to me when I watch him, what's the most impressive is we're talking about a 4-3 edge player here who that's where he's best suited, played with an injured ankle, and often played on 3 down lineman fronts at the 4-eye, and not only held his own, but wreaked havoc in the run game. That is so impressive to me, and it tells me that he will, at the very least, is going to be probably an elite run defender throughout his career. And then you look at the athletic profile and say, okay, so you were injured, you were playing slightly out of position potentially, and you have this athletic profile. They can get high-end pass rush production out of him if they develop him the proper way. And so that, to me, is why Michael Williams is so intriguing. And I would have him over Shamar Stewart. But that being said, Walter Nolan, to me, I have above both of them. So it doesn't really matter.
I think that's awesome, and I'll be happy with either of that. And like I said, if there's a guy like Jalen Walker that fell down and he's there, I could see that vision as well. I think those are all going to be really good NFL players. I get the doubt on Shamar, but yeah, Walter Nolan to me, I'd be ecstatic with that. I think we'd be celebrating that tomorrow. But I got to roll, brother.
Hey, you got to get out of here. Yep, I'll talk to you later, David. Have a good one.
Peace.
Later. There goes David. All right. Yeah. So we were just doing top 11 tonight. We wanted to see 49ers. He said he'd only be able to hop on for a little bit. And I knew once I got him talking, there was no way he was going to bail on me before we got to 11. And David knows his prospects. That's why I really, really, really enjoy having these conversations with him. So between himself, Rohan, and myself tomorrow night, we're going to be on live 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go through all 32. We will have to be much quicker than tonight. So we will do that. But we're excited to do that. And then we will be live for the whole draft as well, all the way through. Expect 4+ hours, and then expect a couple hours the next night and a couple hours Saturday morning. This is what we do. I love draft time. This channel rocks during draft time, and I trust David and the way that he looks at prospects. I trust Rohan, and this year more than ever, I trust my opinion. I still usually defer to David and Rohan. Rohan and I are usually pretty same level, although I don't know how deep he's gone into it this year, but for sure, Marco and David, I usually defer to them if I have questions. But this year, I'm very, very confident in the work that I've done. So I think this year will be the best year that we've ever had covering the draft. and I cannot wait for it. I'm really excited. And at the very least, there will be a pick, I guarantee it, that has me throwing my arms up. And David and Rohan will have to talk me off the ledge. So, at the very least, stay tuned for that one. But I hope you all have a blessed night. I will be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, 1 hour before the draft is scheduled to start. I think it's scheduled to start at 8. Maybe it's 8:30. Either way, 7 p.m. Eastern, we will be live covering the draft. We'll give you all 32 picks, and then we'll see how accurate we are, and we'll have a lot of fun together. So make sure you tap in, and hopefully, like last year, we can get tipped off on some of these picks and get them early. So be ready for that one. We'll talk to you soon. Much love. Peace.